Well, welcome everyone. Michael Dotterer, and I'm on the dot, and I'm on the gridiron as well. And we're going to bring someone on right now. But before we bring him on, actually, he's probably inching to get on because I usually like to wish every happy birthdays, and I go through this litany of things. But he's a J, and actually we should talk about this. And he's sitting in the back here. He's behind the screen, and I'm gonna bring him on. But one of the things that's really exciting, and this portion of On the Dot is being brought to you by Zodian. And many of you think, well, what is Zodian? Well, Zodian is a fun way to come up with your Myers-Briggs typology. And if you studied psychology, which I didn't, Myers-Briggs is a survey that determines your personality, and it's based on Carl Jung's work. So, for example, I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. So I could go on and we could talk for hours and hours, and that drives people nuts, like Dan Kerins. Dan is coming on right now. He goes crazy because he's on the dot, baby, Lombardi time. So I'm not going to go in too much detail about Zodian, but Zodian is going live on January 2nd. And what I mean by going live is for 7 years, Alex von Ullman has been in his laboratory working on how can we make Zodian available for people and giving them something that is probably one of the greatest gifts you could get, which is to know yourself. And I'm going to bring Dan on right now, and I want to ask him, Dan, what is your Myers-Briggs typology, MBTI, or what we call your Zodian? And Dano, I'm a Pegasus, which is an ENFP. So let's bring him on, and I think I know what he's going to say. Let's see. Here we go. Dano.
Morning, Michael.
How are you, brother? Happy New Year.
Yep.
So do you know what your Myers?
There, huh?
So I don't want you to skirt the question. Do you know what your Myers-Briggs typology is?
No, Mike. I'm not really concerned with that right now.
Okay,
I just want to get through the day.
Exactly. So let's hop right into it. People, we brought you on a couple of weeks ago. You were awesome giving us a layout of the bowl season, the American football bowl games that have been a tradition for 100, I don't know. This is a good question, Dano. What's the oldest bowl game in American history?
I believe it was the Rose Bowl in 1906, if I'm not mistaken.
So we've been playing bowl games for over 100 years.
And you know who's won the most Rose Bowls, right?
It's right there, USC.
I think they've won 24 or 25 Rose Bowls. It's pretty impressive.
Right.
Anyways.
Well,
I wish everybody Happy New Year.
Yes.
Very much so. Looking forward to 2022 and getting 2021 behind us. This situation we're all in. So, anyways.
Well, I'm optimistic. Let's start off on a good note. I believe 2022, for those that have the right attitude, which is the attitude determines your altitude. All of you, it's a choice. You can say, I'm going to look at the upside. The glass is half full. And I believe that this is the greatest time in human history to live. There's more opportunities today, Dano, than in human history. So with that, let's get right into the bowl game picture. Can you give everyone a layout? We talked about the teams. There's four. How many bowl games are there, Dano?
There were supposed to be 42 or 43. I think we've lost 7 of them so far. So we're going to have over 30 bowl games. It's been good.
Well, talk about this because, this has been an unprecedented year. Talk about why we've lost the bowl games. Go ahead, Dano.
I'll give you some good stuff. First and foremost, the SEC, the mighty SEC is 1-5 in bowl games. I just think that's hilarious. The Big Ten, 5-0. Perfect. Perfect record so far. The Pac-12, typically 0-4. And you'll see an 0-3 on the actual schedule, but I got to give UCLA a loss for pulling out of their bowl game with 4.5 hours before kickoff. I mean, that's just horrible. And what a shame for everybody involved, but especially those North Carolina State fans and players and coaches that came all the way across the country to San Diego looking forward to that game. So that was a bummer, but that's typical Pac-12 and West Coast mentality. So it's unfortunate, but it happened. Last night, I witnessed one of the most incredible college football phenomenons ever. And it's the 17-year-old running back from Wisconsin. Can't even remember his name now, Dante or Bronte or something. But, oh, my gosh, what an amazing kid.
Did you say 17 years old?
He's 17-year-old freshman. Wasn't even in the starting lineup to start the season. Ran for about 1,200 yards. But more importantly, he's a 6'2", 238-pound running back, and he's still 17 years old. This was supposed to be his senior year of high school. And his name's Bronte. I wish I could remember his name better. Hold on a second. I'm going to look it up. I don't want to discredit this kid. He was unbelievable. His name, Michael, was Braden Allen. And, God, what a beast. What an impressive kid. And really well-spoken. Awesome interview after the game. Very articulate guy, and just really happy for him. Really looking forward to today. Today's the big day for college football fans. We have two huge games in the Cotton Bowl that comes up 12:30, I believe, West Coast time. And we happen to be in Boise, by the way. If you look outside here, you see the snow on the ground. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yep.
It's been snowing here for –
It's all white.
It's been snowing here for most of the week we've been here, but it's supposed to let up. And so anyways, but getting back to the games, the Cotton Bowl, starting off with Alabama and the Cinderella kids from Cincinnati. I just can't see, as much as I'd love to see the Cincinnati Bearcats get Bama a game, after what I saw Alabama do to Georgia in the SEC title game, I just can't see it happening. I would think that Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, kid from Mater Dei, will probably have a field day. And I'd look for Alabama to probably win something like 34-17. In the late game, the Orange Bowl, we got the Michigan Wolverines versus the Georgia Bulldogs. And Georgia got throttled by Alabama in the SEC title game. Really unimpressive performance. In the biggest game of their season, they laid down basically. While Michigan, who lost a heartbreaker in East Lansing to Michigan State early in the season, just absolutely thrashed the Ohio State Buckeyes, which is no small task, not an easy thing to do, even in the big house. But they manhandled Ohio State. And looking for a really good game in that second game tonight. I'm hoping that the 7.5-point favorite Georgia Bulldogs have another blip on their radar screen and Michigan come back and beat them. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping, Jim Harbaugh he got a signature victory against the Buckeyes finally. But to win tonight would be huge for he and the Michigan program. And they've had a rough last 15 years. They haven't done a whole lot. So anyways, that's what I see coming up. Mike, you're muted. Or I'm muted. One of us is muted. There you go.
Know what? I'm trying to mute myself. I'm trying to be a better listener.
No, you've come a long way.
Well, it's this.
Maybe we both have.
Well, this is about you, Dano. People want to hear your perspective. You've been following college football. You played the game. You have a passion for the game, and you understand. I don't know of anyone, and I know a lot of people. I don't know of anyone that knows college football better than you do.
Well, I appreciate that, but yeah, we're just all fans. This is a great time of year, and the bowl season just makes the whole holiday season more fun, I think. Not for everyone. A lot of people don't even know what's going on, but I know certainly for the college football fandom out there, we're enjoying it. Today and tomorrow are huge.
Yeah, college. It's been a tradition. It's fun. I'm happy for the students, but It has been crazy. I don't think we've ever had 7 bowl games ever canceled in the history of college football. And and UCLA, I can't believe it. It's unbelievable to me. They canceled. What was it? 7 hours before the game?
3.5 hours or 4.5 hours.
What was the reason for that, Dan? What did they say? What was the reason?
I heard some kids on the defensive line were, had a bad cold, and the testing wasn't all there, and protocols and blah blah blah. These are kids. You're young kids. They should have played the game. And again, I will just reiterate: typical UCLA. This is why they're a basketball school. This is why they're known as a basketball school. And yep, they just throttled us this year. They whipped us good. And they do rise up every 4 or 5 years and beat us. But, that's embarrassing. And it's not just embarrassing for the Bruins. It's embarrassing for the Pac-12 and the West Coast. We wonder why we don't get the respect nationally, why there's East Coast bias and Midwest bias. And that was a perfect example. I have a few other gripes. And I'm sure you've thought about some of these things. And, in fact, I believe we've talked about them. The opt-outs, Mike. All these kids not playing in their bowl games. I understand they're sitting on a big pile of money getting ready, or really sitting on a lottery ticket getting ready for the NFL draft. But how can you not play in the bowl game? Watching that Pittsburgh quarterback last night with his headset on in the suite was a joke. That kid should have been on the field enjoying his last game with his teammates, his brothers. So that's a real disappointment. Obviously, the missed bowl games, the opt-outs, all these coaches jumping ship, all these players entering the transfer portal and jumping ship and changing teams. All that stuff should be off limits till after the final bowl game, after the title game. And mid-January, that should be the earliest coaches and players and kids can opt out. So anyways, just my 2 cents. It would make the game better.
Dano, I remember 60 Minutes on CBS. It was about 40 years ago when we were kids, and they had a man and a woman, and they argued the points. I think Saturday Night Live. What was it? It was point, counterpoint. And I don't know. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, Dano. I'm going to take the floor here, so I want you to listen. And
Please.
Okay, so I'm going to take the floor. And let me give everyone my take on that. Okay. You heard Dano talk about how, he can't, the opt-outs, and what an opt-out is when a college football player decides that he's not going to play in a bowl game. And the reason what that player says is because he's concerned about his health. I personally, Dano, agree with no one's going to know the player's health better than the player. And if the player wants to opt out, that's his choice. And I understand we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, and you were only one hit away from the game is over. And Dano, I'll never forget Chaffee High School. Now, Chaffee versus Edison, 1978. And this is very interesting. I think people will appreciate this story because that you and I were teammates at Edison. I had the flu. I was the Orange County back of the year being recruited by Arizona State, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, University of Iowa, and even the Ivy Leagues. I had the flu. But you know what? There was no way I was going to not play in the game. There was no way that I was not going to play in the game. So I played, and I wasn't the only one that had the flu. We had others that were in the flu. And this was like a bowl game. Back then we didn't have bowl games. This was a bowl game because it was a CIF semifinal or whatever. We were working our way up to the championship round. And so let's just say it's a bowl game, a high school bowl game. And it was a big deal. And Chaffee had a quarterback who was probably, when I watched him for the first 3 quarters, he was probably one of the greatest athletes I had seen in my high school career. And Dano, you know about him. And you know what, Dano? Could you complete the story? Complete the story.
Yeah, unfortunately, late in the fourth quarter, Mike Newnham was his name. Not Newman, but Newnham. Best player on the field that night. Easily the best player on the field that night. They scored a late touchdown with about 3 minutes left, maybe, to go up 32-20. They decided to go for a 2-point conversion to go up by 14 points. And it was a point after touchdown. And I was playing defensive end. I've been chasing this guy all night. They just seemed like their cleats. They had longer cleats, and we were slipping around on ice, and the mud was 3 inches thick, and it was just it was a bad night for us. But long story short, for whatever reason, they had this guy in the game after they scored the late touchdown, and he rolled out to my side, and I just happened to come off the block, and we met helmet to helmet, and he went down, and when he went down, his leg got trapped, his cleat got stuck in the mud, and his knee basically exploded underneath him. And I have never in my life heard anyone scream like that. It was a really sad moment, frankly. And unfortunately, they brought him off. They took him off the field on a stretcher, and it happened near our sideline. So I think there was some concern that maybe it was a late or cheap shot, which it was not. It was just happened it was almost like a surprise hit. Anyways, come to find out, the following Monday at school, our defensive coordinator, Barry Waters, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you had a heck of a game Friday, but I just wanted to let you know about Mike Newnham. He had surgery, and his knee's probably never going to be the same." He was on his way to Arizona State on a baseball scholarship, but he was also going to play football, is what I heard. So anyways, it's just kind of sad. And you're right. The injuries happen, and it's very unfortunate because that kid was a superstar. And, yeah, it could happen to anyone, any of these kids. And, I can't really blame, especially when there are millions of dollars, their lottery ticket, so to speak, waiting in the wings. But it's just disappointing. Ohio State has 4 starters not playing in the Rose Bowl. They're literally treating the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, like a second-rate consolation game, and we'll see what happens with that. I think they're still strong enough to beat Utah. Utah absolutely pummeled. God, who'd they beat? Oregon, the Oregon Ducks in the championship game and in a regular season. But I can't see them standing up to Ohio State. We'll see what happens. I hope they give them a great game because Pac-12 needs a big win. They're 0-4 now, and they got Washington State going today, and they should win that game. But it's been a rough go for the Pac-12. It's been a terrible season.
Well, the Pac-12. If this is my prediction, Dano, USC, your USC Trojans, University of Utah, and Oregon, those 3 schools, I'm predicting in the next 5 years they will have a league. Well, I'm going to call it the SEC of the West. The SEC
I hope you're right.
of the West. No, they're going to have to realign. And some schools are going to say we want in. Schools, I would say that Washington might want in. But the other schools, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, actually Oregon State will probably want in. Colorado, I don't know. Colorado, there's going to be some schools that will say, and this is my prediction, just like the Ivy League, the Harvards, the Princetons, the Dartmouths, the Yales, those schools in the early 1950s, when college football went from, whatever they were at, it probably didn't offer scholarships. And then in the early 50s, they said,
right,
we're going to offer scholarships. We're going to take it to the next level. The Ivy Leagues said, that's it. We're not going to get into the big time, professional football. So that's what we're looking at, Dano, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I hope the West Coast and the Pac-12 gets it together. I do want to give a shout out to the Mountain West Conference. 5-1 in their bowl games this year. Outstanding performances across the board. Really impressive finish to their season. Unfortunately, Boise State didn't get to play today. They were supposed to play this morning, and again, due to protocols and whatnot. Anyways, it's been a fun season for the Trojans. Total disaster, but they got the right guy. They got the right coach. We have a real athletic director. The damage that Pat Hayden and Lynn Swan, two all-time heroes for our program, but had no business being athletic directors. But the damage that they did lasted a decade, and it's not over yet. We have a new athletic director for the last couple of years, and we had a new coach coming in. But it's going to take some time. So anyway,
Dano, just to throw this out also, there was a quarterback. I don't know if it was the Georgia quarterback or it was the Alabama quarterback. These are quarterbacks that came from or maybe it was Ohio State. Maybe it was Ohio State.
Both.
Okay,
Both.
They all came from California.
All three schools.
All three came from California. And here's the facts, and people don't know this. If you're a young athlete, player,
yeah,
I'm throwing out student because, again, in my humble opinion, college football is professional football. And join the ranks of baseball where you have minor league baseball.
It's headed that way.
If you're a young player in high school and you take a recruiting trip to Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and you see those stands are full and the administration and the athletic department and the fans and the community all supporting, you feel that energy. And then you go to a Stanford game, or you go to a Cal game, or you go to a UCLA game, and even recently a USC game, and you are being recruited and you look in the stands. Dano, we got a problem, Dano.
Yeah, fan apathy is an issue in the West. There's no question. But I've also been around for the Pete Carroll years, and before that, some incredibly successful years. I've been a 34-year season ticket holder for the Trojans, and I've seen that place packed and jumping, and it's a wonderful experience. Rose Bowl, to see the 35,000 show up every game, I just don't understand. I think that UCLA is going to turn the corner. I think they're going to have a pretty respectable team for the near future, and I think Chip Kelly's a good coach. It just took him some time. The culture there is just not. It doesn't revolve around football, not even as much as at USC, but certainly nothing comparable to other schools in the Midwest and in the South, especially. So, but yeah,
it's a big time. It's an issue because you're not going to be able to compete. You're just not. And the reason I went to Stanford, back when I went to Stanford in 1970, what was it, 1978?
79.
79, but you and I played together. I went to Stanford because I could compete at the highest level academically and I could compete at the highest level athletically. And I turned down Harvard. I turned down Harvard to go to Stanford, to the disappointment of my father. And we competed. We went to the Horseshoe. I'll never forget going to the Horseshoe and playing in front of the largest crowd in Ohio State history. And we beat Ohio State. And we went to Norman, Oklahoma. And we beat Norman, Oklahoma. And we had a quarterback named John Elway, and that helped. But I'll tell you right now, we've got our work cut out for us because we've got people at Stanford, which I respect. We've got administrators, presidents, professors who are looking at the landscape and saying, David Shaw, who I love David Shaw. He's a Stanford alum. He's the winningest coach in Stanford football history. He passed Pop Warner. But in the last 3 years, Dano, Stanford has struggled. And I got to ask you, Dano, we have the worst attendance in all of the Pac-12. Can Stanford survive? Can Stanford survive this change of college football?
Yes, I think they can and they will. David Shaw is a great guy. He's been a great coach for a long time, but I think maybe his message has gotten a little stale. Might be time for a change. But to your point, regarding the top quarterbacks in the country, Bryce Young, who's the Alabama quarterback, he's from Mater Dei. At least he played his last couple of years at Mater Dei. C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, we'll watch him tomorrow in the Rose Bowl. I mean, he's from Rancho Cucamonga. And then J.T. Daniels, the backup quarterback in Georgia, he was a Mater Dei kid that went to USC and blew out his knee unfortunately, first game of his sophomore year. But anyways, those are 3 kids that should be playing here locally. And I definitely get what you're saying. So
yeah, well, I think, as I said, USC, it sounds to me like you're confident USC has made the commitment. I am not as confident that Stanford is going to do it, but I just heard Stanford had a great recruiting year. And
they did.
So
they go up and down. But you know what? Stanford's always going to be a player. And they just, they're just, I think they're a new coach away. I think they'll have a new coach in the next year or 2. And David Shaw's done some great things, but I see him.
Well, Dano, let me ask you. The University of Texas came out 2 or 3 weeks ago and said, we're going to pay our offensive linemen $50,000 per offensive lineman. That's what we're looking at.
Right.
We're going to start pay. So how do you see that? Do you see all the Pac-12 schools following that lead?
I don't know. I just paying these kids on one hand makes sense, but then you got to pay everybody. Do you pay just the ones that are making the headlines, or do you pay them all? And do you pay them all the same thing, or do you give them all different amounts? What about the women's water polo players and the softball kids and the men's track and field? Yeah. Dano,
here's the thing. Are we talking about socialism? And then that's okay if we're going to embrace it, which it is right now, which football and basketball, because of TV revenue, brings in the money. And then they pay the athletic director millions of dollars. They pay the coaches millions of dollars. They pay
tens of millions.
Yeah, they pay for all the other sports. And Dano, the football player, sits back and says, well, what is my worth? So I think in the next 5 years, you're going to have they're going to have to really look at baseball. Baseball is the model. Baseball has a minor league system. When you're one of the greatest pitchers and you get drafted by the Dodgers and they give you $3 million, you go to minor leagues. You go to the minor leagues, and Dano, you have a $3 million pitcher playing with a kid from Venezuela who was signed for $1,000. So Dano, that's the free market system, brother.
Yeah. However, baseball players that start playing in college, they can't sign a pro contract for 3 years. Well, once they start, they're locked in. So that's an interesting concept as well.
Yeah, it's just, Dano, we've been cheated. I mean, from my perspective, the college football player has been cheated for years and years, and now it's changing. And I'm all for the player because Dano, you're one hit away from that's it. And we also know, Dano, also know about the brain. So it's a dangerous sport, and we could get into it. But the final thing I want to say, Dano, I watched last night the John Madden tribute, and boy, what a great tribute to John Madden. You want to make any remarks to Coach Madden and your thoughts on how he impacted you and your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't see the tribute. However, I was very sad to hear about John Madden. I think of all the coaches and football personalities from my childhood until today, he might be my favorite. What an incredible personality. What a presenter, a proponent of the game of football. And he just had such a unique way of describing everything he saw. He's going to be missed, and the game's just not as much fun without him. That's for sure. So
yeah,
rest in peace.
Well, Dano, as you know, on the dot, you get the last word. And what I want you to do is, when you get the last word, you get to, wish everybody the New Year. So you get the last word, Dano. And I'd like to have you on post bowl game to go over, what happened. And hopefully I'm hoping that the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Michigan Wolverines are playing for the championship. And I'm going to have to root for my good friend, Jim Harbaugh. I'd love to see Jim win a national championship. So with that, Dano, you get the last word, and happy New Year to you and Crystal and your beautiful children, your son and daughter, and all our Charger. Two sons, and also happy New Year to all our Charger family members, Edison Charger family members, and to your Trojans and to my Stanford Cardinal. And Dano, you get the last word. Take us out, brother.
All right, Michael. Hey, thanks for having me on. Guys, it's been a pleasure. I want to wish everybody a happy new year and a wonderful 2022. Enjoy the games. Be safe, please. This weekend, a lot of knuckleheads out on the road. It's amateur hour out there, and just keep living the dream, people. Love you all.